Straight ahead, a first for the Farm Monitor. For the first time ever, our cameras are traveling abroad, taking you to new heights and new destinations, to Havana and the third U.S.-Cuba Agricultural Business Conference. Join us as we learn about the state of Cuban agriculture and the government's policies geared towards boosting output and attracting foreign direct investment. We'll also engage with policymakers to better understand the current political relations between both countries and the possibilities for importing Cuban products and investing in Cuban production. It's a special on-location edition of the Farm Monitor from Cuba, and it starts right now.
This is the Farm Monitor. For over 50 years, your source for agribusiness news and features from around the Southeast and across the country, focusing on one of the nation's top industries, agriculture. The Farm Monitor is produced by one of the largest general farm organizations, the Georgia Farm Bureau. Now here are your hosts, Ray DeLessio and Kenny Bergamy.
Alrighty then, yes, Kenny and I back on U.S. soil, safe and sound, ready to share with you all the knowledge and experiences we brought back from Cuba. But first of all, from all of us at the show, a sincere thank you for tuning into the Farm Monitor.
Yes, thank you indeed. And without further delay, here's what's coming up. The U.S. Agriculture Coalition for Cuba. What is it, and how does it benefit farmers here in the States? We'll talk one-on-one with Coalition President Paul Johnson and get his take on why he feels the embargo levied against Cuba is doing more harm than good for both sides.
Speaking of the embargo, what prompted it in the first place? And what are the possibilities between the two countries should it ever be lifted? Also, did you know that Georgia is a major exporter to Cuba? Yeah, it's true. The product we produce that Cubans so desperately need. So without further delay, let's jet set to the Caribbean. Following a 2-year hiatus due to COVID, the U.S.-Cuba Agricultural Business Conference was back. It's a lot of information to process, and our cameras were there every step of the way. However, we weren't alone. Others representing the U.S. agricultural sector included officials from the National Corn Growers Association, the World Poultry Foundation, and Holstein Association USA, just to name a few. The conference included comments from Cuban dignitaries, as well as breakout sessions and tours to area farms and cooperatives. Once there, we learned about the many needs Cuba's farmers have and the struggles they face day in and day out in an effort to feed an entire nation, all while maneuvering through the many challenges of imposed sanctions. For Georgia Farm Bureau Chief Administrative Officer Jeffrey Harvey, this was his first time attending the conference and first time visiting the Republic of Cuba. Like so many of us, the trip left a lasting impression.
It's just a good opportunity to come down and see a different side of agriculture that we're not exactly used to, explore the opportunities as far as trade possibilities in the future. And Georgia produces a lot of different products that the Cuban people could utilize, and just exploring those opportunities and seeing if there's ways that we can move more of our products down to Cuba.
We always knew that the Cubans wanted to import more U.S. wheat and corn, and this just sort of really hammers that point down, and the openness of the people here to say, listen, we really need to trade, we want to buy your commodities, and they want to export to the U.S. And that's really important because they need money to buy our commodities. So it's been a real experience.
So how exactly did we get to this point? The ongoing tension between the U.S. and Cuban governments, as well as the U.S. sanctions levied against Cuba's government. John Holcomb looks at the strained history over the past 60 years between the two countries, as well as any possibilities for increased trade should relations ever improve.
Bienvenido a la Cuba. Welcome to Cuba, a country rich in Latin American culture with a troubled history with the U.S. over the last few decades, starting with when President Kennedy issued an embargo in 1962. ending trade relations with the communist country after Fidel Castro took power and allowed the Soviet Union to place missiles just 90 miles south of Florida. Over the years, relations with Cuba have slightly improved, as the U.S. has been exporting agricultural products to Cuba since 2001, but only account for about 1% of total U.S. ag exports. But as Jim Sumner, president of the USA Poultry and Egg Export Council, says, the majority of those exports were Georgia's top commodity, poultry.
We started shipping here in 2001, right after Hurricane Michelle, when our government offered aid, and Fidel said, I'm not going to accept your charity, but I'd like to purchase some product because we need them. So that's when our trade with Cuba started, and it's been growing each year since. Actually, it's our third largest market in the world, behind only Mexico and China. So Cuba is huge. Last year we shipped 308,000 metric tons of U.S. chicken. A lot of that was from Georgia.
Despite that, though, Sumner also believes that lifting the embargo would benefit the poultry industry even more.
By lifting the embargo and lifting restrictions on Cuba, Cuba would become a tremendous destination like it once was for U.S. tourists. And we could invest here, we could invest in our own processing plants, further processing operations. It would be of tremendous benefit.
The embargo has had quite an effect on Cuban agriculture. As you can see, they rely on outdated equipment and mostly organic farming practices, since getting machinery and pesticides is a challenge. But it does work for them, as you can certainly tell from this cornfield. However, corn is still a top commodity exported from the United States to Cuba, but those in the corn industry, like John Doggett, CEO of the National Corn Growers Association, says Cuba could certainly benefit from more corn being imported, and it would certainly help growers in the U.S. as well.
Corn is usable in many forms, whether it be corn for livestock, corn for ethanol, distillers dry grain out of the ethanol process, corn oil. You know, there are 4,000 products in the United States that are made of corn, and so we see a lot of opportunity. This is a country that needs a lot of things, and we think that we have a good basket of goods and services that we could provide.
However, for trade to be opened with Cuba, Congress would have to take action in order to lift the embargo. Reporting in Havana for the Farm Monitor, I'm John Holcomb.
Hi, John. Thanks so much. Just a small sample of what we learned here at the U.S.-Cuban Agricultural Conference. Now, up next, a look at how Cuba goes about farming here on the island and the kind words regarding America's farmers expressed to me by Cuba's president, Miguel Diaz-Canal. Cuba, aka the Republic of Cuba. A country that for well over a century has endured its share of challenges. Hurricanes, political unrest, and of course, a global pandemic. All of it in some form, some way, resulting in the country being shut off from the rest of the world, isolated, if you will. And one of the sectors hit the hardest: agriculture.
Our productions have been affected because we haven't had the availability of the raw materials to work.
Logramos procesar.
Well, we have also lack of inputs as the containers to be able to fill and pack all the products that we produce here.
I mean, honestly, it's like taking a step back in time and seeing the way that they farm down here and the resources they have access to. And we just, we're so blessed in our country and our farmers. I know we have a tough time producing, but we've got state-of-the-art technology. Our research and education programs in the United States are amazing, and it helps propel our farmers to a completely different level than what we've seen down here.
A term often associated with Cuba is revolution. There was the Fidel Castro-led revolution in the mid to late 1950s. Then came the collapse of the Soviet Union in the early 90s, resulting in another revolution here in Cuba, one of the organic nature. More specifically, organic farming, a practice that wasn't born out of choice like in the U.S., but more so out of necessity. Before the Soviet collapse, Cuba's agricultural needs such as fertilizer, pesticides, and farm equipment were imported directly from Russia. After the collapse, those much-needed items became less and less, largely due to imposed sanctions. It's an issue they still struggle with today. And although Cuba's farming practices are now largely organic, the farmers we spoke with said they are open to more traditional methods of farming as well as GMOs. During a special meeting at the Palace of the Revolution with Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canal, I asked the president directly what he thought of America's farming practices and U.S. farmers in general. His response? One of admiration and respect. President Diaz-Canal saying, quote, "We can learn a lot from you about the application of technology and the development of productions that we know are very efficient." He added, "We would very much like access to the same technology and products as America's farmers, and are very impressed with the way they've been able to develop them over the years." I'm with Doug Kiesling. He's a fifth-generation farmer from Chase, Kansas. And Doug, we heard the president talk about his admiration for America's farmers and the technology that you all use. We heard the farmers down here talk about their admiration for you. So when you hear that as a farmer from the U.S., how does that make you feel?
Well, it makes you feel good to be appreciated as a farmer. But you know what we're learning is that farmers around the world are all resilient. They're all proud, innovative, all of these words, and farmers around the world will make things work, either through the pandemic or through trials.
In Havana, Cuba, for the Farm Monitor, I'm Ray DeLessio.
All right, Ray, thanks so much. For over 25 years, Paul Johnson has engrossed himself in Cuban culture, its commerce, and yes, its relationship with the United States. As president of the U.S. Agriculture Coalition for Cuba, he's connected with hundreds of organizations like Georgia Farm Bureau in hopes of building better relations between the two countries and to shine light on the endless possibilities for the import and export of goods that would not only benefit the people of Cuba, but also consumers here in the U.S. Paul, tell us about the coalition for our viewers that don't know what it is, what its function and mission is.
The coalition has been around for about 9 years now. Our mission is to improve the agricultural relations between the United States and Cuba. Ultimately, what we're looking to do is end the embargo, allow us to increase our agricultural exports to the island, normalize our trade relations. Cuba Agricultural Conference is about getting producers, farmers in the United States and farmers in Cuba together. Here we are in the field. There's no better experience than having two producers, two farmers get together to exchange know-how, to get to understand each other better, and also how we can improve our friendship relationships and our commercial relationships. That's the heart of why we come down to Cuba. We also meet with other buying agencies to sign contracts with our Cuban counterparts, and eventually to look for some foreign direct investment opportunities. That seems to be a new opportunity the Cuban government has frankly been talking about for too long. But given the message that we heard last night, I believe that is a course that they've accepted. And so if they want to privatize part of their economy, the United States should move into that space. That's what we do all around the world. Cuba should be no exception.
You've told me the embargo for 60 years hasn't worked. Does agriculture in the U.S. share that sentiment, you think?
I do. I mean, we need some common sense to this idea of the embargo. After 60 years, whatever we have initially attempted to do, set out to do, has not worked. We have no influence here in Cuba. We do export food to Cuba, but we only export about 15% of what Cuba purchases from global suppliers on the world. Clearly, there's much more that can be done given the cultural, familial, historical, and agricultural ties between our both countries. So I would say that the embargo has been a failure.
For U.S. farmers, what's the biggest opportunity? I know Georgia's exporting a lot of poultry here. Are there other opportunities like that for other states across the country?
Absolutely. I mean, you mentioned poultry. Right now, Cuba's consumption of poultry represents about 40% of the protein needs of a Cuban diet. For our U.S. poultry producers, Cuba is the third largest market in the world. Mexico, China, Cuba. For U.S. rice producers, Cuba could be the second largest market in the world. Certainly for soy and corn to help increase animal production, which is certainly needed here. What we've seen over even the past year, as pork production has been declining here on the island, pork prices for the Cuban family have tripled because of the lack of feed. And we can go on down the road to wheat. Certainly this could be a market for us and many others.
What do you see next? What happens next? You've been doing this over 25 years. You've seen the changes or non-changes that have happened. What happens next? Where do we go from here?
It's a great question. I can't say I'm optimistic. I think the politics is going to be very difficult right now. It seems like old habits die hard. That being said, I think agriculture plays a very important role in improving this relations. We have a lot of people in rural America that would like nothing better to come to Cuba. I'm sure they'd like to be able to drink some Cuban rum, smoke some Cuban tobacco, and be able to see how farmers produce, help their neighbors out while increasing their export trade.
Final point, I heard today 521 million Cuban cigars purchased in the United States last year. American cigar smokers are finding a way to get those cigars into the country despite the embargo that exists there. Is there even greater opportunity for these farmers of tobacco in Cuba to sell even more to the U.S. if they'll lift this embargo?
I'm sure they would like nothing more. They've said that constantly to us. And just very simple, if we can buy more tobacco, more cigars from Cuba, say 50 million of the 520 million that are being consumed right now in the United States per year, just a small percentage of that would increase their purchasing power to buy our goods. That's a very simple solution. I hope Washington hears the message.
Well, that wraps up our coverage from Cuba, but the show is not over. Up next, the Freedom to Farm Act is now a law here in Georgia. What it means and who it affects after this.
This is a day that all Georgians should be proud of. Today is accumulation of decades of hard work. And it seems only fitting that this once-in-a-generation milestone comes on the heels of already record-breaking trade numbers.
It's a project that has a long history. It was an investment into our future, into our kids' future.
The Savannah Harbor deepening. A lot of people, ask, what does this really mean to you and to the Georgia ports? For ships that are moving inbound, a 52% reduction in tidal vessels. For ships moving outbound, it's a 90% reduction. Vessels waiting less time and moving more efficiently.
The Georgia Ports Authority has already been hard at work expanding its capacity because the GPA believes, as I do, that we should never rest on our laurels. Together, we've achieved something transformational, something that will solidify our position as the best state for business for years to come.
That teamwork between all levels of government manifested itself in this harbor deepening. It made our economy better, and it makes our country stronger.
Finally this week, after years of hard work at the state capitol, the Freedom to Farm Act has officially been signed into law by Georgia Governor Brian Kemp. It's a piece of legislation that not only shields current farming operations from nuisance lawsuits, but also helps secure a future for the state's #1 industry. Damon Jones breaks it all down for us.
And just like that, House Bill 1150, also known as the Freedom to Farm Act, is now Georgia law. In a ceremony at Dickey Farms in front of numerous agricultural and state leaders, Governor Brian Kemp made it official, putting to rest the top issue Farm Bureau has been fighting for over the past 4 years.
This bill's been a priority issue for Farm Bureau for quite a few years now. We've been working on it for around 4 years. It's really been the #1 thing on people's minds, farmers' minds all across the state of Georgia. The way Farm Bureau policy works is it all starts at a grassroots level. So all our members, they're the ones who determine the things we come up here to Atlanta to advocate for and to lobby on. So really this came directly from producers all across our state.
However, this could not have been accomplished without plenty of collaboration and teamwork between the ag community and state legislators.
This has been just a huge undertaking, a really big effort. Ag organizations from all across the state of Georgia have come together to work on passing this particular piece of legislation, and it took a lot of hard work. We really appreciate all the efforts from Chairman Robert Dickey, who carried the bill in the House, and then also Chairman Larry Walker for carrying the bill in the Senate, and just all the work that they put into it to really spearhead the effort.
This was one of the more divisive bills during the past legislative session, with the opposition arguing it provided no recourse for the landowners. However, that is not the case when farming operations are not acting in accordance to specific environmental guidelines.
It provides protections for farms against nuisance claims coming from neighbors. So it says that no farm will be a nuisance after 2 years of being in operation, right? However, this bill in no way protects a farm that's acting either illegally, negligently, or in an improper way.
While opponents of the bill also argued the old legislation was working due to the lack of nuisance suits, that hasn't been the case in recent years.
When this first started, it was really more of trying to get ahead of the curve, trying to get ahead of a problem that we saw coming down the pipe, something that was going to become a problem for farmers in the next couple of years, the next decade down the road. So really that's kind of how it started. In recent years, and really even in the past decade, we've started to see this issue come up in Georgia, and there have been instances of farmers being sued, or really the threat of lawsuits as well.
The type of assurance this new legislation provides for the farmer is important not just for the current well-being of the ag industry, but also its future.
This bill is critically important for the future of agriculture. We're asking folks to come back to rural Georgia, asking folks to stay in rural Georgia, to continue participating in agriculture. If we want someone to invest in agriculture, to start a new farm, with as capital intensive as agriculture is these days, it costs a significant amount of money to start a new farm and to get your first few years of operation underway. And so this bill right here would give them some assurance that going forward, that they're going to be protected from nuisance claims that would be a significant cost with litigation and legal fees that could really shut an operation down permanently.
Reporting from Crawford County, I'm Damon Jones for the Farm Monitor.
Quick reminder for all the latest ag news regarding food, recipes, and what's happening on Georgia farms. Be sure you check out all of our social media platforms, including farm-monitor.com. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time right here on the Farm Monitor.
Stay safe and have a great week.